Thank you, guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It happens all the time. I'm Richard Pollock. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm with Pauling Labs and Ener-C. I've got my partner, Stella Siegel, with us as well to answer any questions. So really appreciate you guys making the time. And I'm really excited to share my vitamin C story, some history on vitamin C, and some of the amazing things that you may or may not know about vitamin C. And I'm just going to start my presentation. So just give me one quick second. And if you guys do have questions, I'm going to reserve 15, 20 minutes at the end for questions surrounding my presentation and vitamin C. So with that, I'm just going to say cheers with my delicious Ener-C drink mix. And we're going to talk about, will the real vitamin C stand up? And the reason it's entitled The Real Vitamin C is there are a lot of things about vitamin C that you may not know. And hopefully during today's presentation, you're going to learn about them and learn about how vital vitamin C is. And, you know, just before I get going, it's really important to understand that vitamin C is one of the vitamins that we simply cannot live without. Our physiological functions just cease. So it is just one of the most vital vitamins that you can possibly take. But I'm going to start with my story, hopefully. I don't continue to run into technical difficulties. So that's me at 3 years old. I was the most hyperactive, ADHD, dyslexic kid with a ton of behavioral issues. And you can see that that's essentially me trying to climb out of the car, which was always the case. But my story goes back with vitamin C to when I was 3 years old, and really around the fact that I had really bad ADHD, incredible learning disabilities, and my parents, my uncles, my aunts, they didn't know what to do with me. So as fortune would have it, my grandparents lived next door to one of the founders of the Orthomolecular Society. And for those of you who shop at stores like Healthy Planet and know natural health foods and supplements and natural products, the Orthomolecular Society was started in the 1960s, 1970s by a group of scientists who believed that you could treat physiological and physical ailments through diet and supplementation. So lo and behold, I visited a doctor by the name of Dr. Abram Hoffer, who was one of the founders of the Orthomolecular Society, along with Linus Pauling and Albert Santian-Gorgi. And Dr. Hoffer said, listen, we're going to put this guy on megadoses of vitamin C, megadoses of B vitamins, and we're going to remove all sugar from his diet. So I grew up in the 1970s and into the 80s with a kid that was on megadoses of niacinamide, other B complexes, vitamin C, with a very almost non-existent sugar diet. My diet was so horrible that I would have birthday parties and other kids would show up. My parents would make a special birthday cake for all the other kids, and I would get carob cakes. So it was a pretty rough life. But lo and behold, all of my behavioral issues melted away. And so then they were able to start treating my learning disabilities, my dyslexia, my spatial perception issues. And it was really an incredible part of my life, which sent me on my journey to where I am today as the founder of Ener-C, the #1 selling natural vitamin C in Canada and soon to be North America with Ener-C. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of vitamin C. And I'm going to sort of raise a bit of a rhetorical question because I can't see you guys, but I want you guys to understand that vitamin C is so important, we wouldn't be living in North America right now without it. Vitamin C is responsible, or at least figuring out the use of vitamin C, was responsible for global exploration, for the ability to cross the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans the way we have. Because as you guys will remember, growing up and going to school, there were the stories of the sailors who would, have scurvy. And what scurvy is essentially the breakdown of our intercellular glue, collagen, that keeps our cells together. And without vitamin C, and there are many other functions, but without vitamin C, our cell walls start to break down. And that's why all of these sailors on many of their trips died, because they weren't getting vitamin C. And so in 1617, John Woodall published The Surgeon's Mate, which really laid out the fact that you needed to carry citrus fruits aboard your ships in order to make these long voyages. Otherwise, your entire crew would perish, particularly on these long voyages. And that was sort of the first documented use of vitamin C. And it's really interesting that even today, in many malnourished countries, and even in countries that are Western countries, particularly in the down and out countries, down and out east side of Vancouver, and I'm sure in other major Canadian cities and US cities, people are malnourished, and there are incidents of scurvy. And I noticed that someone's raised their hand. I will answer all questions at the end, so please keep those questions, and please keep the questions up for sure. So it's really important that vitamin C, that we all sort of frame it as, wow, vitamin C was the vitamin that was responsible for global exploration, which was really cool. The other really neat thing with vitamin C is it's the only molecule that has ever been associated with 2 Nobel Prizes. And it was issued 2 Nobel Prizes in the same year, which is very incredible. So the first Nobel Prize that was issued was to Albert Ciancian-Gheorghi for how to isolate the vitamin C molecule, and then Walter Norman Haworth for initiating mass production. So it was really that first year in 1937 that Gheorghi was said, hey, listen, this is the vitamin C molecule. And then that same year, Hawthorne was able to say, now we can mass produce it and get it out to the masses and start improving people's health. It's interesting to note the person most associated with vitamin C is Linus Pauling. However, Linus Pauling did not win his Nobel Prize for vitamin C. He won it sort of in an esoteric area around the nature of chemical bonds and how it works within complex substances. But just really interesting to note that. So a lot of you guys are maybe aware, some of you aren't aware, that there are 3 major groups of vitamin C. There are some tertiary ones out there and some newer types of vitamin C out there, but the science really they haven't been around long enough to really be backed up by science. So the first form is ascorbic acid. And ascorbic acid is sort of the most common form of vitamin C. And with that form of vitamin C, the body must work to chelate or leach out the calcium, sodium, potassium, manganese, zinc, and chromium that makes up that vitamin C molecule. There's an intermediate form of vitamin C called Ener-C, which is just calcium ascorbate and other metabolites, and that allows the body to easily absorb that calcium, but it still has to work. And although it's pH neutral, the body still has to work. The third and final form of vitamin C is a mineral ascorbate vitamin C, which is the most bioavailable form of vitamin C. And I'm going to back up a little bit, and I'm going to say, did you all know that all animals, with the exception of human beings, fruit bats, and guinea pigs, produce their own vitamin C? And those animals that do produce their own vitamin C produce it in the form of mineral ascorbate. So the animals that do produce their own vitamin C, every animal except for human beings, guinea pigs, and fruit bats, happen to live 7 times their age of maturity. And if they're living 7 times their age of maturity, if human beings, if we were to take that as a correlative thing, we would be living to 120 years old. It's interesting to know with those animals, they don't have any heart disease. They don't suffer from heart attacks. They don't have other cardiovascular issues. And they also don't suffer from vascular diseases as well. And a lot of that has to do with the amount of vitamin C they produce. With human beings, we are suffering from what's called hypoascorbasemia. And that means the inability for us to produce our own vitamin C. There is a theory that in the past, humans did produce their own vitamin C hundreds of thousands of years ago. And there was a study back in the 1920s among the northern peoples, First Nation peoples of Canada, the Inuit, that they too may have produced their own vitamin C because they didn't have any sources of vitamin C. So it's interesting that it may be a genetic defect that we no longer can produce our own vitamin C. You'll see on the left-hand side of your screen a little graph or a little chart that lays out how much animals produce on their own. For example, a rat, which is physiologically very similar to the human being's makeup, will produce anywhere from almost 3,000 milligrams to 13,000 milligrams a day. And the reason for that variance in the number that the amount that they're producing has to do with the stress levels they're under. The more stress, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, the more vitamin C they'll produce. So there is some debate amongst the scientific community as to the fact that vitamin C is so pivotal to help us manage stress in our daily activities. So the fact that the rat's producing that much, they stored in their adrenals. When they go under stress, the body releases even more. The fact that we've got this 90 milligrams average vitamin C per day is absolutely ridiculous from our perspective, and that we really need to take that and have a relook at the amount of vitamin C that we're taking in on a daily basis. Vitamin C and immunity. Everybody knows about vitamin C and immunity and why vitamin C is important for immunity. Technically, the reason why vitamin C is so good for immunity, amongst all the other things that it does for the body, is it happens to trigger a specific type of white cell production, white blood cell production, which is called they're called neutrophils. And so when we've got higher levels of vitamin C, our neutrophil production is increased. So we need vitamin C, for immunity. It's something that is key to keeping us healthy, and particularly in today's world with such concern around immunity, instead of taking vitamin C for just clinical illness. So when, like the poor woman in this photograph is sick, so she's taking vitamin C in her tea. But the fact of the matter is the more vitamin C that you keep in your body on a daily basis by consuming vitamin C and consuming foods and vegetables that are high in vitamin C, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, you're building up your immune system. And having a strong immune system is really the key to lessen the effects of any illness that you may have, whether that's regular cold and flu or what's going on with some of the coronaviruses that are going around today. The stronger your immune system, the better off you're going to be able to fight these off. You still may get sick, but the intensity and the duration are going to be significantly lessened. Why I'm talking to you today isn't about the immunity piece, even though it is very important. Why I'm talking to you today is really about the fact that vitamin C isn't just for immunity. Vitamin C has so many other functions that are just pivotal to the body, how we operate, and key to so many of the physiological functions of our body. And some of those, well, I'm not going to go through an exhaustive list, is very important for as an antioxidant to really deal with that oxidative stress, particularly for those of us living in cities, dealing with stress. The vitamin C molecule will scrub those antioxidants out of the body. Also, you guys are probably very familiar with collagen, particularly if you're shopping with stores like Healthy Planet, because it's one of the most popular products out there. Collagen is so important for our skin, our muscle, and joint health. But collagen does not get produced in the body, nor does it get absorbed in the body without vitamin C. If you guys recall, earlier on in the presentation, I was talking about how sailors would suffer from scurvy and that interstitial glue that holds our cells together. Well, that's collagen and vitamin C. And without that, our cells start to break down. So it's so important for that. Vascular health. I talked about how those animals that produce their own vitamin C tend to not have heart disease or cardiovascular disease. And the reason for that is the vitamin C keeps our veins and our arteries healthy by scrubbing calcification, by also ensuring that those walls, those venous and arterial walls, remain incredibly strong. So it's also a natural bioflavonoid, which contributes to that vascular health. Oxygen absorption. And if any of you guys are interested, I'm happy to send you the articles on oxygen absorption and vitamin C. Not only do I have articles on regular oxygen absorption and vitamin C levels, but there is a clear correlation between athletics, vitamin C serum levels, and oxygen absorption. The higher your oxygen absorption levels, or the higher your vitamin C blood serum levels, the higher your oxygen absorption levels are. And they've shown that after vigorous exercise, those who have higher vitamin C levels have much better oxygen absorption, which is very important because it allows the body to recover. It allows the cells to be able to perform their best, particularly under physical exertion. And the other thing that vitamin C does is it also provides a natural energy because it's triggering those physiological processes in the body to help the body perform best. So I want to talk a little bit in depth about the collagen production, because I know that a lot of you, and I've been asked many times, on how the vitamin C plays that essential role in tissue formation and the biosynthesis of collagen. So you guys will see, and this will be one of the few slides that I actually sort of go into depth on, but you'll see that the collagen in the cells under those underneath that slide called fibroblasts, the keratinocytes are only absorbed into the cell through the vitamin C. So it's really important to note that without that vitamin C, we don't get that absorption of that collagen into the elastin and the fibroblasts. And it's really about that vitamin C flowing through and allowing for that absorption. So, you know, really, if you read the text on the side, that deeper layer of skin called the dermis contains those high levels of collagen, and it's constantly broken down while the fibroblast cells in the dermis layer make up new collagen. And really, without that vitamin C flowing through, the process of making new collagen would just simply stop in its tracks. So when you're taking a collagen product, make sure that you're taking it with Ener-C to make sure that you're getting the best out of that. So as well, with that vascular health, that having those higher blood plasma levels is associated with the lower cardiovascular disease. And then as well, that, and I haven't spoken about this, but nitric oxide production is also increased, and reducing that oxidative stress, increasing that blood flow or vasodilation. And the study that I was referring to with the oxygen absorption, and you guys can write this one down, is the American Physiological Society article on September 14, 2015, showed that vitamin C is significant in providing additional oxygen absorption. And then a really cool study, which was in the Allergy, Asthma, and Clinical Immunology Journal in November of 14, showed that vitamin C had a significant effect on respiration. And it really, again, vitamin C is aided in oxygen absorption. And now, even with patients with cystic fibrosis, they're now suggesting that they take up to 10 to 12 grams of vitamin C per day in order to help them with that oxygen absorption. I'm going to talk a little bit about adrenal fatigue, and certainly, Pat, in the last 18 months, we've all had a lot of stress in our life and a lot of fatigue in our adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands are so important on how we manage our hormones, how we manage our stress. And in animals, as I said earlier, vitamin C is stored in the adrenals. In humans, it's not. So it's really important that as we're going through these very stressful times and our adrenal glands are being taxed to the nth degree, that we take vitamin C throughout the day. A lot of you guys are going to say, well, you know, I understand that I basically can absorb all the vitamin C I can, and then I excrete out what I don't use. And for mineral ascorbates, by the way, you are absorbing the type of vitamin C we use in Ener-C. You're absorbing probably 70 to 80% of that, but the body uses it up really quickly, as opposed to the calcium ascorbate, the Ester-C, which you're probably absorbing 60%, and with the ascorbic acid, you're only absorbing, 30 to 40%. But the interesting thing to note is the body doesn't store the vitamin C; it absorbs it for the amount that it needs in the moment, and that's why it's really important to be taking vitamin C throughout the day. So typically, what we suggest is you take some Ener-C in the morning, you take it in the mid-afternoon, and you take it in the evening, and it really helps with those adrenals. So a lot of people will talk about why supplement, and I'm going to suggest you're taking it obviously for in our product, the vitamin C, the magnesium, the zinc, the potassium, the calcium, niacin, and manganese. But what I've shown you in front here is, in this picture, is food. And you're like, a lot of people are like, well, I can get the vitamin C from my food source. And what I'm going to tell you guys may surprise you, and some of you may know, but we can no longer get all we need from food. There is a lack of trace minerals in our fruit and vegetable supply, including organically grown fruit and vegetables. And this is why it's been shown as an important reason to supplement with vitamins. So in 1930, the US Department of Agriculture reported a depletion in the trace minerals of the soil due to our industrial farming techniques back then. In 1992, Earth Summit report indicated that the mineral content of the world's farm, range, and land soil had decreased dramatically over the last 100 years by over 85%. So what we've seen is from 1932 to 1992, we had already seen a decrease in 1930, but then in 1992, it was even more pronounced. So we can't get the same minerals and vitamins that we used to get pre-1900 out of the ground. There are some new biodynamic farms that are emerging, but the majority of food that we're getting does not have the same levels of vitamins and minerals that we once had. it's really becoming more and more important to supplement with the C's, the B's, the magnesiums, the zincs, sodiums, potassiums, calciums, niacins, and manganese because of these farming practices. And what I want to do as well is I really want to talk about what's changed with the farming practices. And one of the things that we stand so very firmly behind. So in the last 20, 30 years, one of the most major things that has changed with farming practices is the introduction of genetically modified organisms in order to work better with pesticides. And what that has done has raised many, many questions about the health implications of using genetically modified organisms. But more importantly to us, even though health is tantamount, where we can see empirical proof of the damage that genetically modified organisms are causing are amongst the farmers of this great country of Canada. Prior to genetically modified organisms, farmers could go and they could reap their own seeds and replant them every year. What's happened now is that farmers have to go and buy their seeds. Well, who do they buy their seeds from? They buy their seeds from large pharmaceutical companies. You may be familiar with the name Monsanto. That company is owned by Bayer Pharmaceuticals. So you've got the pharmaceutical companies controlling our food production and also the medicines, the pharmaceuticals, to help treat disease. My focus is that, and our company focus, everybody here to a person believes that no one but Mother Earth should own the seeds of the planet. And therefore, we are firmly against any genetically modified organisms in our food supply. And that's why every product that we put out will all be certified non-GMO. So it's really, really important. So why Ener-C? And that's sort of something what I wanted to talk to you today about, and why we designed this product the way we did is that it's non-GMO, it's gluten-free, it's vegan, it's Canadian made, it's made right here in BC, everything about it, and it's a mineral ascorbate vitamin C. And you'll see across the top of your screen that we have won awards almost every year in existence. We won an award, 2 awards this year, both gold in Consumer's Choice and Retailer's Choice for New Product of the Year for our sugar-free product, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But Ener-C and energy. So why do you get energy from a vitamin C, a multivitamin product? Before I explain that, I'm actually going to give you all a little experiment to try with your Ener-C. So what I'd like you to do is after lunch in the next week or two, grab a packet of Ener-C and pour yourself a glass. This is after you've eaten, because most of us, after we have lunch, suffer what's called a post-lunchtime dip. And the reason we suffer from that post-lunchtime dip is because the vagus nerve is pumping all of our electrolytes in our bodies into our stomach to help digest our food. Well, Ener-C is full of electrolytes, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. And those electrolytes are very important to energy. So we are bags of mostly water. Every smell, taste, touch, feel that you have is all conducted through your neurons and your nerves. And all of those messages are conducted on the electrolyte superhighway. So when we're low on energy, typically we're low on electrolytes. So when people talk about dehydration, it's not about that lack of water, it's about the lack of the transportation of the electrolytes. So a lot of the water that we drink is filtered, a lot of the minerals are filtered out of the water, so we're not getting that same level of electrolyte supplementation that we normally would. So it's really important to supplement with those electrolytes. The other reason you get energy, because it's really a double-edged sword here, or a triple-edged sword with energy, is you get the B vitamins. And B vitamins give you energy because they help convert the food that you've eaten into ADP and ATP energy. So it's really, really important to be able to have those B vitamins to help convert your food into energy. And in particular, that pantothenic acid that we have in Ener-C as well. So again, why Ener-C? It's certified non-GMO. It's a full multivitamin. It's natural energy with no caffeine. It's got the electrolytes for rehydration, and I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about the electrolytes in a minute. It doesn't have any artificial colors or flavors. So everything in our product is natural. All of our flavors are from real fruit powders. All of our colors are from fruits or vegetables. We use a purple beet powder to color our raspberry. We have sweet potato in some of our others. So we use 1,000 milligrams of dehydrated orange powder. We use encapsulated beta carotene to create an orange color, in the orange I'm drinking right now. So it's really cool. The other thing is we only have on our sugar version, because we've just come out with a sugar-free version, a very low amount of sugar, 5 grams of sugar from a non-GMO source of cane sugar. And it's important to note that that 5 grams, in an average apple, you're getting about 18 grams of sugar broken down into various forms. So it's a very low amount of sugar in Ener-C. The electrolytes that I just wanted to show you this slide really quickly, because it's really important that the electrolytes are absorbed into the cells by co-transport. And you really need that energy, so that sugar energy, that ATP energy, and that ADP energy in order to absorb into from the extracellular fluid into the intercellular fluid. And it's really important, again, for that level of energy, because as I said before, every one of our 5 senses is all driven by electrolytes. Every physiological action is all driven by electrolytes. So it's really important. The other really cool thing to note, another experiment you can do on your own, is if you have a headache, you take an Ener-C, 9 out of 10 times that headache will disappear. 80% of all low-grade headaches are caused by low electrolytes and dehydration. The other experiment that you can do is if some of you consume alcohol and you have a bit of a headache the next morning, you take an Ener-C, that headache disappears entirely. So I was talking earlier on, and you guys remember that picture of that kid crawling out of the passenger side window of the car. It's always been important for me to have a sugar-free version of Ener-C, and it's taken me and our team years to be able to produce a sugar-free form of Ener-C. And the reason for that was really around getting it to taste right. And we used a combination of, and I'll talk about it, but a combination of erythritol and stevia to get that perfect flavoring. It's the same exact formulation as our regular Ener-C, but for those of you who are sugar sensitive, like me, and sometimes don't want any sugar whatsoever, Ener-C sugar-free is the answer for you. It's also really important to know that sugar has just become so pervasive in the North American diet. Regular sugar consumption has increased, I think, over 3,000% over the last 100 years. And the other fact is that sugar, lots of it, can tend to suppress immunity. So, 2 12-ounce sodas will cause a 50% drop in the ability of white blood cells to engulf bacteria. So it's really important. The regular sugar in Ener-C, the 5 grams, isn't going to hurt you. But if you're having other sugars in your daily diet, it will affect your immunity. So again, it's the same active formula. The supplement facts is just off to your left there, but really it contains the same active ingredients and sweetened with erythritol and stevia. The erythritol is a tree alcohol. It is the safest of the tree alcohols. So some of you on the call may be familiar with xylitol that some people bake with. But we have a very small amount of erythritol and even a smaller amount of stevia. And the fact of the matter is that I can't stand the taste of stevia. And I think that what we've been able to do with the erythritol is sort of mask that taste of stevia. So when you're drinking Ener-C sugar-free, as I am right now, you'll notice that you don't have any of that sort of metallic aftertaste that you sometimes get with stevia. It does have an 11 calories and 3.86 carbs, almost 4 carbs, but it's got 0 sugar in it. And those calories are coming from the real fruit powder that we use. I'm going to jump back into electrolytes a little bit because we've got this product called Ener-C Sport that we designed as well. So if any of you are active athletes, and if you get sick at all, or you have any issues around gastrointestinal issues, we created Ener-C Sport for you. And Ener-C Sport was designed around the World Health Organization oral health rehydration standards. And what we did is I went out and I said, what's in a saline bag? So many of you may know that when you go to the hospital and you're dehydrated, they'll give you a saline bag and an intravenous injection of saline. So what I went out and did is I worked with some chemists and I said, how do I dehydrate this bag of saline and put it into a packet and into a powder form so it can be drinkable? So I worked with several chemists and we found a way to do that, 4 packs of this Ener-C Sport in 2 liters of water is the equivalent of a saline bag. And the other thing that we've done is there is a little bit of sugar in this one. There's 1 gram of gluten-free glucose. So you notice immediately upon taking the Ener-C Sport, this really, you feel the energy right away because the ratio or osmolality, as they call it, which is really how quickly electrolytes absorb into the body from the small intestine, is really to do with the amount of sugar solution, which should be about a 4% sugar solution to the electrolytes. And we've created that ratio exactly with Ener-C Sport. And we have time and time again 5 out of 5 ratings for reviews from athletes, doctors, first responders as well. So you really get that mental energy, you get the physical energy, you just feel much better when you've got this electrolyte solution in you, particularly when you've been exercising or dehydrated. Again, it's premium certified non-GMO ingredients. We don't have any artificial sweeteners, colors, or flavors. It's all natural. And you can see there as well. And I think that this recording will be available to you after our ingredient deck. And you'll notice that it's a very full ingredient deck. We did include, although it's not an electrolyte, the vitamin C, and we did that again for the respiration, because as I spoke about earlier, it helps increase your oxygen absorption, which is so important, particularly after vigorous exercise, or if you're not feeling well from gastrointestinal issues. And that's, you know what, I sort of want to make sure that I've left enough time and 10 or 15 minutes for questions. But that's it. Please connect with us on by email at info@PollingLabs, our website at www.tryener-C. Our Instagram is tryener-C, and our Facebook and Twitter handles are tryener-C as well. And that's, you know, with Ener-C, it's also really important to note that when you're shopping for Ener-C, you want to visit Healthy Planet as often as possible, because most times Healthy Planet has the best prices on Ener-C. And as a matter of fact, it's on special right now for $12.95, which is a smoking hot deal compared to buying it anywhere else. And we really enjoy our partners at Healthy Planet. And I'm gonna open up the questions. So thank you very much, Joanne Baig, for about the liposomal vitamin C. So one of the things with the liposomal vitamin C is, and it was one of those one of the questions that we had asked for earlier, is that the science on liposomal vitamin C is not as there hasn't been as much time on the liposomal vitamin C to actually prove out that it is more bioavailable than the mineral ascorbate. It certainly has shown to be more bioavailable than ascorbic acid. But again, that liposomal vitamin C in the format that it's in, we are looking into it, and we are watching it, but we really believe that that mineral ascorbate vitamin C is the most bioavailable form out there. But we are watching the science, and we'd love to hear from you guys as you're discovering more science, either through info@Pauling Labs or DMing through our social channels to hear more. Are any of our ingredients from China? We do have one ingredient from China in one of our products, and it is our, we do pull, and I'm not sure exactly what it is because we just did move everything out from Brazil and North America. So there was one ingredient in the pineapple coconut, and it was the coconut that was brought in from China, but we are now working on a separate source. I think it's also really important to note that when people ask are ingredients from China, it's really about the heavy metals and ingredients from China, which are quite high. We have a company standard that we do not accept anything more than 2 parts per million of any heavy metals. And that is a standard. Health Canada's standard is 20 parts per million. So we've really worked very hard on that. But that's the only ingredient that we currently pull from China. And if you want to follow on AZ, I'm happy to have that with you. Anonymous attendee. Why did they remove sugar from my diet when I was young? So the orthomolecular regimen was, because I was so hyperactive ADHD, they recognized very early on that sugar was a neurotoxin, and that the neurotoxin caused a lot of hyperactivity, caused a lot of other developmental issues, and that sugar was a poison. Leaving Dr. Hoffer's office, I remember very clearly from 3 years old, his final parting words to me were "no junk," meaning no sugar. And it made a huge impact in my life. And to this day, I consume very little sugar, but there was a really important physiological reaction to sugar. And my sister, who was a little bit of a sadist, would experiment on me by giving me maraschino cherries and just watching me explode. My behavior would go from being relatively perfect to being quite horrible. So yeah, there was a cause and effect there for sure. So in our sport product, thank you for asking the question, Michelle. 800 milligrams of glucose. That is a very small amount of glucose. That's less than 1 gram of glucose, and it is the perfect form of for that ratio of osmolality. So it's 4% of the entire solution when you fill up 1 packet to 500 ml. So again, to give you an idea around an apple has 18,000 milligrams of sugar, and I think about 9,000 milligrams of that is glucose. So it's a very little amount of sugar. So again, 18 grams of sugar on apple. The 800 milligrams is a very small amount. And guys, if you have follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to put your hands up again. So anonymous attendee asks, what is it that helps prevent leg cramps? Well, as it so happens, I have a 13-year-old, and sport is amazing for the leg cramps, as is regular Ener-C, because he's growing like a weed and he gets horrible muscle cramps. The reason we get the muscle cramps is twofold. Number one, it could be from a bit of a lack of B vitamins, but most times it's from a lack of electrolytes, which causes our muscles to cramp up because they don't have the electrolytes to operate properly. So when you get that proper level of electrolytes, all cramping starts to relax. So really it's the magnesium, the calcium, the manganese, the potassium that really help with all of our muscle cramps as well. And I hope that answered your question. Do we, Marilyn Farber asked, do we have an Ener-C made from rose hips? So going back to my heavy metal discussion, we have been looking at a vitamin C from rose hips. The issue that we constantly come up against is the levels of heavy metals in food-based vitamin C. The rose hips that we found has a anywhere from a 5 part per million to 10 part per million of heavy metals because it's food-based. So it's very hard for us to sort of find one that has a consistent supply or a consistent rating on that heavy metal. And our belief is we'd much rather provide a vitamin C that had that consistent lower heavy metal rating, and then also a vitamin C that was incredibly bioavailable. So the technology around the rosehip vitamin C is good and getting better, and we're constantly looking at it. But until we're able to get a consistent supply of that vitamin C that's around the 2 parts per million, we'll sort of have to steer clear of that. But really good question. How often is it safe to supplement with this vitamin C? And this is from Nira. Nira, thank you very much for that question. Another part of my personal story is I had a very bad bicycle accident when I was 12 years old and I lost my spleen. So I'm very susceptible to viruses and bacteria, colds and flus. I take anywhere from 6 to 8 grams a day. Linus Pauling, and we named our company after Linus Pauling, who is considered one of the fathers of vitamin C. He took 14 grams a day. So again, if you go back to that chart I was showing earlier, the rat, which is physiologically very similar, is anywhere from 3,000 to 13,000 milligrams a day. I personally believe that we need to be taking a minimum of 2,000 milligrams a day. So that would be 2 packs of the Ener-C. But, as I said, I take up anywhere from 6 to 8. And I talked about my one kid. I've got another kid at home. They're constantly ill. And when I keep my vitamin C serum levels high and keeping anywhere from 6 to 8, I just don't get ill. So there is no issue, particularly around stomach tolerance with Ener-C because of the mineral ascorbate that we use. So it is quite safe. So again, you can take anywhere from 1 to 6 packs a day without any issue whatsoever. Yeah, Angie, good question. Really good question on the vitamin B12. Angie asked, the vitamin B12 is not recommended as natural. Do you think you can change it to the natural version? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what we've done, Angie, because I love the fact that you've asked that question, and we are on our way. We have changed in the sugar-free to the methylcobalamin version. And Angie, what you're referring to is a bit of a genetic defect that a big chunk of the population has, that they can't absorb the cyanocobalamin version. So we've gone and we're now switching out in our regular Ener-C to that methyl version. So a really good question. And we think that probably by January, February, all of our Ener-C will be in that B12, that methyl version that you're referring to, Angie. So really great question. Thank you so much. Barbara, is it keto friendly? And I'm back on the sugar-free slide. You betcha it's keto friendly. There's no sugar in it. It's keto friendly, it's diabetic friendly, and it's really it's a really good alternative and really great for keto. Patricia asks, if you're fasting, will this knock you out of it? Not if you're taking the sugar-free again, Patricia. So again, it's a great way to stay hydrated and not knock you out of your fasting if you're taking either the berry or the orange sugar-free. So Denisha asks, how long should we take this? Like 1 sachet per day or? Yeah, so I believe, because we don't produce our own vitamin C, and as I talked about earlier in the presentation, that we need to be taking vitamin C every single day because we don't store it in our body. So it is so important that we take vitamin C, and hopefully you're taking Ener-C, at least 1 packet a day. 1 to 2 packets a day is sort of the minimum that I believe we should be taking. Keeping in mind, Linus Pauling, 14 grams a day, and I take anywhere from 6 to 8. So we should be taking it often and every day. Joanne asks, do you sell Ener-C in a jar? I don't like all these packets. So thank you for that. And we're working very hard on coming up with a biodegradable packet that we'll use. It is one of our major goals to be able to have it in a biodegradable or a fully recyclable packet. We do have the Ener-C Sport in the jars, but the reason we have it in packets is because it's what's called hygroscopic. So any moisture whatsoever will cause the product to harden. I will point out that it takes 300 packs of Ener-C is the equivalent of 1 small 13-ounce water bottle. So there's very little plastic. It's mostly a metal. But again, it's a very important point, Joanne, and something that we're working very hard on. But keep in mind that you're very little plastic. And even in cans, as many of you know or don't know, they're lined with plastic as well. But plastic is not something that we're happy about, and we are working very hard to get away from that. And if you have a follow-on from that, I'd be happy to answer it. So does vitamin C need a pairing vitamin for maximum absorption, or does it absorb well on its own, from Kenesha? So Kenesha, really good question. Yes and yes. So we've included in our regular formulation our vitamin A and vitamin E. And the vitamin A, and I'm just going to pull up my my supplement slide here, my supplement facts, if you give me a second. The vitamin A and the vitamin E work synergistically to help absorb the vitamin C. So vitamin A and E together with C is really great in helping absorb that vitamin C. And then the second yes to that is the mineral ascorbate. So the mineral ascorbate is really a great form because all animals produce vitamin C, with the exception of human beings, guinea pigs, and fruit bats, in the form of that mineral ascorbate. So the combination of the vitamin A with the vitamin E is even helps the absorption even better. So really good question. So Angie asks, what is your advice for the acidity that vitamin C causes? My advice is take Ener-C and mineral ascorbates. Ener-C is completely pH neutral and has very little acidity associated with it. So what you'll find when you take Ener-C as opposed to an ascorbic acid or even the rosehip form or the ester C is that you have no acidity whatsoever. So that's part of the problem with ascorbic acid. When you take ascorbic acid, what ends up happening is the body is forced to chelate all of the molecules out of the body to form the vitamin C molecule. So the body has to work hard, dropping our pH from a normal level down to about a 5, creating that acidity. With Ener-C, and we've done the test behind it, you don't get that level of acidity at all. So please, I'll commend you to try that. Kanisha asks, according to one slide, electron needs a co-transport mechanism, no sugar, no transport. Therefore, would the sugar-free still be effective option as others? And Kanisha, great question. The answer is no. It is not as effective as an electrolyte. So we recommend, if you're going to want to use the sugar-free and you want to get the benefits of the electrolyte, to take it either after you've just eaten or take it with a piece of fruit, because you won't get the same level of electrolyte absorption that you would. If there's no sugar in the body, you're not getting electrolyte absorption. Caitlin asks, I have gastrointestinal troubles. Oops. I take vitamin C powder, but sometimes it causes immediate diarrhea after constipation. Would you still recommend taking 1 or 2 doses throughout the day? Any advice? Appreciate it. Again, Ener-C. So if you're taking the Ener-C powder, you will not have any of that GI problem. And this is what I'm guaranteeing to you. That is, if you go and you buy some Ener-C at this great price of $12.95 at Healthy Planet, and you find that it gives you any gastrointestinal trouble whatsoever, we will return your money and we will buy you whatever form of vitamin C you like. And Stella's on the call. I'm sure there's reps. You can reach us at info@Pauling Labs, and we will refund your money. And not only that, it will buy you the vitamin C of your choice if you find that it gives you any gastrointestinal issues whatsoever. Sam asks, does consuming vitamin C promote kidney stone problems or kidney stones? So the answer to that is ascorbic acid has been shown to cause in massive amounts, and we're talking probably in amounts of well in excess of 14 of the packets a day, anywhere from 4 to 6 days isn't going to cause any issue. But the mineral ascorbate as well does not cause any kidney issues whatsoever. So again, it's really associated with that ascorbic acid form of vitamin C. Joyce asks, can Ener-C help with severe psoriasis in a young child? Joyce, I don't know. I've never been asked that question. I wish I could answer. I just don't know. But it's worth a try, and I'd love to hear back from you, because it certainly isn't going to hurt the child. And I feel for you with the psoriasis, and I wish I had an answer and a cure-all. An anonymous attendee asks, why can't manufacturers like yourself make a version with absolutely no sweeteners? I hate attempts to sweeten supplements because they still taste gross, and it makes it difficult to take on a regular basis. Plain versions would be just as easy to take. And the answer to that is, I need you to try our sugar-free. Again, go out. Healthy Planet's got it on a great price. If you have a problem with the way it's flavored, it took us forever to do it and sweeten, we will return your money. The problem is with the B vitamins and the other vitamins, having no sweetener or flavor whatsoever is unpalatable from my perspective and from my team's perspective. And really, at the end of the day, it's just not something that the market would accept, because it does. Believe me, I've tasted it and it tastes horrible. So really, it's about a flavor, and that enjoyable drink is really what Ener-C is all about. And I have one last question here from Tura, and I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Can Ener-C Sport be taken for someone who's on chemotherapy? Ener-C Sport should be taken by someone who's on chemotherapy. When you're on chemotherapy, I will say this, you should be taking 8 grams of vitamin C a day. You should be taking the regular Ener-C, because vitamin C, it's very important for your cancer treatment, and very important to help you with the absorption of chemotherapy. There are several studies out there on chemotherapy effectiveness and vitamin C. as well as keeping those electrolytes up. So Tura, you absolutely should be taking Ener-C Sport and Ener-C while you're on chemotherapy. There is no question of that. And with that, guys, we've sort of come up against our time. I want to thank you all very much for your time. And again, if you have any additional questions, if you need anything, please reach out at info@Pauling Labs or info@Try-Ener-C. We're here for you. My email as well is richard@paulinglabs.com. You can reach out to me too with any specific questions. And please visit your local Healthy Planet and find Ener-C on sale for $12.95, and it's the best price in the country right now. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for your time, and thank you for these really great questions. Really appreciate it very much. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, and cheers.